Alright guys, coming to you from the mighty Midwest. Today is Tuesday, I believe it's August 27th, and I am here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. As you can see, I have a bald head. So what is going on that I'm in Minneapolis and why is my head shaved? So that is the big news I wanted to talk to you about. This year has been a challenging year for me, and I appreciate all my clients and family and friends sticking beside me. And I have been diagnosed with tonsil cancer, and that was April 25th. So back in January, I started having a little cough during a meeting, and it was January. I just kind of figured it was a cold. I was coughing a lot. February, I had some problems swallowing, but it was just twice, and I'd been drinking some wine, so I just thought I'll just stop drinking wine, which I did. And then in March, my son appeared to have strep throat, and through a fortunate turn of events, because I had taken him to the urgent care, and the urgent care wait was over an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And typically I can't get in to see my doctor right away, but I called my doctor and he was able to get me in. So we went over to the doctor's office, and while the doctor confirmed that yes indeed my son had strep throat, he said, "Your voice does not sound right." And at that time my voice had become muffled to some extent. And I said, "You're right, I feel like I have like sinus pressure up in here." And so again, I was just thinking it was on and off cold. So what happened was, sorry, I just had somebody texting me. I was looking at that text. So yeah, he took a look and he saw growth in my throat and referred me to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. So the story does not end there, and it's starting to rain here in Minnesota. I had the doors open, or the window open, all night waiting for the rain. It didn't rain until this morning when I had treatment. So I went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and he stuck a tube down my throat. Within 5 seconds, he basically said, "Yep, that's highly suspicious of cancer." And I didn't want to believe it, but we scheduled an in-house biopsy, so went back to the same office. A couple days later, he picked and prodded my tonsil, and the results came back a week later, negative. So of course I was like, praise the Lord, let's just rip my tonsil out. However, the nurse said it's not that simple because it's highly suspicious. You can't just rip it out because if it is cancerous, you'll die from blood loss. So I opted not to get another in-house biopsy, and the ear, nose, and throat specialist was uneasy about doing a surgical biopsy because of the surgical team he would have to work with in anesthesia. So at that point I was pretty much on my own, and I went to a doctor in Fort Wayne for a second opinion, and I went back to my family doctor during that time because with the surgical biopsy, both the original ear, nose, and throat specialist and the specialists in Fort Wayne both said I'll need a tracheostomy, which is a tube stick in your throat so you can breathe, even though at the time I wasn't having problems breathing or swallowing at the time. However, at the time I only had 1/8 of an inch of airway left, so it was getting pretty dire. Went back to my family doctor, and he got me into the local cancer center. He said, well, and I had a meeting, well, we can't really treat you because it's not diagnosed, but they were able to get me into IU Health for a surgical biopsy, whereas the original ENT was not. The second ENT was able to do a surgical biopsy. However, IU Health is kind of the cream of the crop in our area, other than Michigan University, so I went with IU Health. IU Health basically said we may or may not have to install tracheostomy, so I said let's go for it. And unfortunately, the last thing I heard when going under was I have the surgeon saying I have the tracheostomy just in case. So I woke up from the emergency room April 25th with a tracheostomy, and I was in the hospital for 4 days recovering from that. Thankfully I could talk, swallow pretty good, pretty much right out of the gate. Before that time I'd also applied to Mayo Clinic on a whim, hoping that maybe they could assist me, and Mayo Clinic actually had an appointment with me. However, because I got in with IU Health, I had canceled it, but then I did ask for the appointment again for a second opinion when they had diagnosed me to see how they would treat me. And so within a week of my tracheostomy being installed, I was up here in Minnesota. That was early May, and I proceeded with treatment plans at the local cancer center back home, while Mayo Clinic came up with a game plan. So the reason that I went with Mayo Clinic is, number one, I got in. It's not always so easy to get in. They have a committee where they actually accept you. They vote on whether they think it's worth it or not. I'm not sure how it works, but there's a committee that decides. And so yes, thankfully I was accepted. I was proceeding with my treatment through the local center, which would entail keeping my tracheostomy in during treatment and being fully radiated, which I wasn't really a fan of because I have a in-law married to my cousin, and he went through this process 8 to 10 years ago, and it is not pretty if you are fully radiated. And I just didn't think I would survive it, really. I really didn't. With a tracheostomy, it's like having a baby that you got to take care of 3 and 4 times a day. It's just nasty, and you got to keep it clean. And Mayo Clinic came through with a treatment plan to shrink the tumor, and it's called induction treatment. And so I opted for that. And induction treatment was basically a 9-week series of chemotherapy treatments where I was able to come up to Mayo Clinic intermittently and get that squared away. And so by June 15th was the day I decannulated. Decannulation is when you take the trach out. It was June 12th, they put a little red cap on me, so I looked like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and sometimes I would cough and the cap would pop all over. So I could breathe during this whole time. The tracheostomy was really more of a burden than it was a help, but I understand why they're doing it, because if your throat swells up or the tumor grows, and they just can't operate on that tonsil, because with cancer it's intertwined with the blood cells. So anyways, got out June 15th, pretty much fully healed. I have a little bit of a scar, but it's still healing back slowly. And then I started my full-on treatments here in I'm in Rochester. If I said Minneapolis, that's chemo brain. Get confused sometimes. I'm in Rochester, Minnesota at the Mayo Clinic, not Minneapolis. In the Minneapolis region, flown into Minneapolis, nice airport. Baseball stadium looks nice too. Yeah, been here since July 29th. By the time you see this video, I'm going home. Done with treatments, and I'll have a full body scan in 3 months. Over and out from the mighty Midwest. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to follow along with my life's journey. Look forward to seeing you on the next video.